He is a police chief, a military veteran, author, mental health advocate, a Texan, and so much more. Our interview with Chief Andy Harvey coming up next. Hey everybody, how you doing? Ryan and Chad here, back for another episode. This is really exciting. We have our first guest on our show that doesn't even have a name yet, but hopefully one day it will have a name. And maybe you guys at home can give us a name, because we don't know. We've been trading back and forth, but today is really exciting for us. We get Chief Andy Harvey on here. I never actually met Chief Harvey personally, but since I left law enforcement earlier this year and started really getting out into social media and connecting with people outside of Pennsylvania, which is the only influence I had, I got to see Chief Harvey on social media, and I'm going to run through his bio here. And Chief, I hope I don't mess anything up, but 21 years in the military between the Army and Air National Guard, over 25 years in law enforcement. He did 17 years at Dallas PD. He's been a chief of multiple agencies, currently chief at Pharr PD in Texas. He's got a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate in strategic leadership, speaker, presenter. He's an author. He wrote a book, Excellence in Policing. We're going to talk about that later. He's celebrated as a transformational leader. He's a community builder, a mental health advocate, in my opinion, just from knowing what I know about him, a leadership expert. And the interactions I've had with Chief Harvey on social media, he's down to earth, he's humble, self-deprecating, he's got a great sense of humor. So Chief Harvey, welcome. We appreciate you having on.
Well, thanks, Chad. And that's quite an introduction. I don't know who that guy is, but he wasn't able to make it, so I'm here. But I do have an idea for your podcast name.
Oh, that's great. Let's hear it.
Podcast without a name. That's it. That's the name of it.
I like that.
Like Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld never had a name. So there you go.
I do. That's a great idea. You're right.
I like that.
We will chill on that later. So
right.
Do we leave anything out of your bio? I mean, and I actually have a pen and paper here, just so you know.
No, you went way too much. So it's good.
All right, so I have a pen and paper here. I know you're going to throw out some good nuggets, so I'm going to write them down because I want to make sure we don't forget them. But
by the way, Chad, I actually see the 11 Bravo, the expert infantry badge you have behind you. So
I do, yeah.
I was also 11 Bravo when I first started, but
I did not know that. I did not know that.
They used to call us Bush Beatles. I don't know if they do anymore, but
now that we heard 11 Bang Bang.
11 Bang Bang, yeah, right. I went to the Air Force side, so.
You got it all covered. So, Chief, we wanted to have you on because just from afar, I can tell you're a guy that knows leadership. Just when I'm working for you without knowing anything about you, you just, to me, you embody everything what a leader stands for and the culture and you're trying to build on your agency. So the first question I have, we want to ask is, what is leadership to you? Like, what does it mean? We throw this word around, leadership. What is leadership to you? What does it mean? What does it stand for?
Well, let me start by saying that I really, I don't know everything about leadership. I'm learning every day, just like we all are. And so I think that's what keeps us relevant, is that we're always learning. And I know we're like-minded, but I've learned a few things, but I've learned a lot of things because I made mistakes. So that's really where most of my experience comes from. But leadership is this. John Maxwell, I'm a John Maxwell guy, by the way. I teach his stuff. I love his stuff. And he says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's influence. So how do you gain influence? That's the key, right? That's the hard part. You just don't get it just because you become a chief, right? Or you become a fill in the blank, right? You don't get that influence just because of your position. And I think we've gotten too comfortable leading by solely our position. Here, let me tell you something else. We've gotten too comfortable leading by policy, leading by rules and regulation, which are important. But it seems to me that what my experience has been is that if it doesn't fit in this box, if it doesn't say so in this general order or rule or whatever that is, then we can't do it, whatever that is. And so I like to think the rules are there, but I think leadership is knowing when, knowing how, knowing how much, as far as imposing your authority and power on others. But really leadership, to be honest with you, let me tell you what the hardest part about leadership is: just getting the hell out of the way. Yeah, I know you chuckle because you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Chief, one thing I loved that you mentioned on there is it talked about not leading by your title, and how you said just because you're the chief doesn't make you the expert on leadership in the department or anywhere. And that's, I think that's one negative aspect in a lot of departments, at least with people that I speak to. And in my experience is that, you get guys, well, I have stripes, I have bars, so you have to do this because I said.
Right. And that works like once or twice. But for us, it's about getting the most out of our people. And if you rely only on that, it's not going to get you very far. As a matter of fact, it'll work maybe once or twice, but what happens is it has a counter effect, and it's counterproductive, and people start resenting you. And once you get to that point, you have totally lost them. So you have lost whatever influence that you had. And again, right. So that's why it's so important to understand what leadership is. And it's a lot of things, but it's not just a one, this is this, right. And this is how you get it. It's just leadership is a hard thing, but you have to know what that is, and you have to know what works. And again, right. For me, it's about knowing when to get out of the way. Leaders have a hard time getting out of the way. We want to be involved in every single little thing, and people just don't like that. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. Nobody wants somebody looking over their shoulder over every single little thing. We have adults that are working here. I have adults. Yes, they're young men and women that sign up to be police officers, but they're also adults. Now, they're going to make mistakes and all that. Yeah, but you got to give them room to make mistakes, right? I mean, you have to give them that. And if they think, they're going to do everything, because everything that we have learned as police officers is when you're out in the field, the number one thing is cover your ass, right? So all we're thinking about is covering our ass, which is important, right? We got to make sure we're doing things right and all those things. But if that's the only thing that we're focusing on, make sure I have this, make sure I have this, we're missing out on the real reason we're out here, on the people. Right? We're so focused on covering our own ass that we forgot that people are calling us for help. They're calling us because they need something. And we're over here focused. Well, I just want to make sure I do this right because, I'm going to get my ass handed to me, or whatever that is. Right. That's a bad way of not just policing. That's just a bad way of leading or being in any organization. You're not going to add value if you're always worried about, discipline and all those things. Right.
Yeah, that's great. Chief, and you touched on something earlier, and you said this months ago, and I actually put this in my Twitter handle for a couple of weeks and I took it out, but you said culture trumps policy. And I picked that up from you. And I love when you said that, because I know a lot of chiefs, a lot of executives who I think they're trying their best to be a good leader, the empathetic part of their personality, but they always come back to the policy. They always come back to the procedure, and that ends up being the final word. How do you, as a chief and executive, blend those together?
Yeah, culture trumps everything. And it's funny because I studied one of my certifications. I studied church growth, and this kind of goes into what we're talking about. So I'll just briefly touch on that. So church is also, and I'm not going to talk about churches, I love it, but they also have a leadership funnel in church too, right? So and just like any other organizations or institutions, it's not, they're the same. But what they're missing is that leadership part. And so we rely too much on the word, for example, right? If I preach the word, I'm just, throwing this out in general. If I preach the word, they will come. Well, no, they won't. People aren't banging down your door trying to get into your church. That just doesn't happen. So we have to be intentional on how we lead and how we, how we pastor, or whatever that is. So much like, and I learned a lot from that. The reason I bring that up is because I learned a lot from that. We have to be very, very intentional on how we lead, and understand that we don't know everything. And it's just not that simple.
Yeah. What's your take on leadership now in law enforcement? I mean, you can make it regionally, nationally. What's the state of leadership?
Listen, we're going through a leadership funnel as well. And not to say it in a bad way, we're just, a lot of people are bailing out on us, right? And listen, times are getting rough, but this is the times where we need more courageous leaders. These are the times, not when the going is good, right? In the 90s and 2000s, we had really some good years in policing. I mean, crime was down. People were, generally supportive, mostly supportive of us and all this stuff. The last decade, 5-6 years has been rough. It seems like people are starting to leave, right? And so what happens? We need people to fill those gaps and those leadership gaps to keep this going. How do we make it better for the other officers coming in, the new officers coming in? Our job in our job is to make it better. Our commitment should be to that. We owe them that. But it takes courageous leadership to do that. And we're running out, so we need more. And I know there's people out there that want to do it. They just need to be developed and they need to be given the opportunity. But also, like I said, they need to get in there and just get their hands dirty and do this, because leadership is a contact sport. Okay. And it is a contact sport. It's not, all glamorous. You get up here and everybody just loves you. No, that's not the way this works. It's a contact sport. So immediately you're going to have some resistance, but that's where real leadership comes in, to be able to overcome that. Talk about culture real quick. I know you asked that the last question, but a culture is the way we think as a department, right? As an organization. That's what culture is. And so you have to understand what the culture is when you come in, and you have to understand where you want to be. You have to emulate that. Then you have to put people in place that emulate that culture and that mindset and all that. So it is a lot of work, but I know this. Once you get there, it's like no other thing, man. It's a smooth running machine. Not to say you're going to have, obstacles here and there, but those are overcome quicker because everybody's on the same mindset. We're going. And it's a great thing once you get there, but it is a hell of a lot of work.
And I love when you say that, because, I just reflecting on, I've had so many leaders in the military and law enforcement, both good and bad, and pretty much consistently the good leaders really put the time in. It's not just 9 to 5. It's texting in the middle of the night or calling, checking on their officers or their soldiers, or it's really that, like you said, that you're all in, that interactiveness. Is there something that happened to you in your life that this became passionate to you? Is it when you got to Dallas, or is it always, leadership's always been important in your whole life?
It's always, for me, it's been, I've always been, and I don't know what the word, let me tell you what my gift is. Okay. I know this. I know we all have different gifts. We all have heard this. And I know for a fact that my gift is to be an encourager, right? My gift is to encourage people. I love to see people rise above wherever they're at, reach their dreams or whatever that is, and do more than they ever thought that they would. I love that. I love when a light bulb comes on in somebody's head and it's like, oh, dang, I'm been missing, right? So I love to encourage people. So that's really, that's why I think this fits me, because I'm in a position where I get to do that.
Wow,
and
that's awesome.
I do it as much as I can, because I do believe we need to hear more positive things. We need to hear more, so I dressed up as Ted Lasso. Have you all watched Ted Lasso?
Love that show.
Yes.
Great leadership points, right? That Ted Lasso has.
Oh, great show.
I actually, probably send you a picture, but I actually, dressed up as Ted Lasso, right, with the jacket and the greyhounds and all that stuff, and because I love his message, right? Pretty simple, smart guy, right? You think at first Ted Lasso is just kind of like a guy from Kansas or whatever. Smart guy, because he understands people. That's where leadership is. He understands people. And so even around the station, I don't have one here, but I have Believe, right? Remember
Yeah.
I have Be a Goldfish, right? And I'm learning. Listen, that's not just for them. It's just for me too. So leadership is all about people, and we miss out on the most important reason we're leaders. It's about the people. It's not the policy. It's not your budget. It's not about, although those things are important, it's about the people. And people, the reason promote quite a bit, especially as first line supervisors, because they think, man, I'm going to promote to sergeant, for example. You know why? Because they do less work. Chad and Ryan, no, they don't do less work. But that's what they've seen. It's more work if you do it right. It's more work when you invest in your people and take time to get to know them and all those things. It's a hell of a lot of work. So if someone says, I want to promote because I do less work, they're thinking about the less, for example, writing reports and that kind of thing. Well, you still have some of that, but they lose sight of, listen, the reason I promote is not because of me anymore. It's because of you. And the real work is about the people that they lead. And so that's something that we all need to work on, because I've traveled around the country. Everybody tells me the same thing, Chad. I ask chiefs around big city chiefs, what is your number one obstacle? First line supervisors are just not engaged enough.
And there's not an officer watching this that won't be able to relate to that comment, because I know Ryan's experience, we talked about this, that how do we fix that as a profession? How do I know we all know plenty of people that want to get sergeant just so they have the better schedule, not, like you said, do less work. How as a profession do we fix that? Because I know it's a trick question.
Yeah. I mean, so you buy, how do you eat an elephant? You one bite at a time, but this starts at the top, man. You have to understand, you have to know, and that's what you want in your organization, to have leaders at every level. And so we have to start at the very top and make sure that you have people in place that is going to carry your message, right? I talk about your flag, right? So, we come in and we want people to carry your flag, our flag, where we're going, our vision and all that. But if you don't have people carrying it, man, then you have a flag and it looks pretty, but no one's carrying it. No one knows what it is. But so you need people in place. But the farther away you go down from, let's say, the top or chief's level or CEO or whatever, the harder it is to get down to that level and get people to total buy into what you're doing. That's a hard thing. So I say that because we need more help in the first line supervisor for sure, but it's not easy. It's a hard thing, but we need to start that culture where they know when they come into our department, even as a young officer, we value leadership and we value people. When they have that, they know when they promote, hey, if I don't value people, I'm not going to fit in well here. If I lead only by policy and I'm a hard ass and well, you're not going to fit in here because that's not who we want to be as an organization. So it's a culture thing, right? But that starts from day one, but it starts at the top and it has to be funneled down. And it is, I'm telling you, it's a hard thing, but that's what we need more.
Wow. Are you doing anything in your agency now that's different than maybe other police departments regionally to you around the country, that you just had these ideas and say, I want to try this, and it's maybe got some blowback or people celebrated, being different?
My kind of style leadership is a little unorthodox at times. I will admit. I let people try to resolve things without me getting involved. And sometimes to a point where, listen, people have some really hard conversations. And I stay out of that unless, I don't want people to come to blows and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having these heartfelt, adult conversations about, hey, if you feel, I let people do that. And I actually think conflict can be a good thing, right? If it's managed, right? So I actually, when I see conflict, I use that as I let them hash it out. And sometimes they'll tell me, hey, I'm had enough with so-and-so or whatever. I said, have you talked to them or him or her? Well, no, you need to go in there and have this conversation with them. And it's hard for them. But what they tell me is once they do that and they clear the air on some things, they're like, man, I'm glad I did that. But it's hard. But it's a hard thing.
Yeah. And you started this interview by saying that you don't know everything, and I can tell you're humble. You have a sense of humility, which I think is so important. And that's kind of how Ron and I want to do these shows. We want to start to put out content that is not perfect, or it's not, we know everything. It's having guests on or having people inside the profession that say, look, we don't know everything, but if we work together and are willing to listen to each other, we can make a lot of change. So, I mean, the things you're saying, I think are going to resonate with executives around the country, that you don't have to know everything and you could try new things. You don't have to follow this construct that you've been told from, the chief before you and the chief before them. There's a way you can be outside the box.
I think that's a great point, Chad, because listen, don't be a leader like me. You be a leader that fits who you are, right? Be authentic in who you are. I'm a little unorthodox. That doesn't mean you should be, because it's not for everybody. And so be who you are. Know what your strengths are, what your gifting is. It may not be encouragement. It's something else. Well, focus on that. And here's what I focus when I surround myself with people. Here are a couple of nuggets that may help you and your viewers as you're in leadership. Make sure you put the right people in the right places. What I do is focus 90% on people's strengths. See, most of the time when someone says, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? First thing they bring up is, well, he's lazy, he comes into work, he doesn't whatever, and tells me all the negative stuff. I want to know, okay, what do they bring to the table? Man, he loves community. He is damn good at talking to people, and he's out there and he loves it. When he does that, he is at his best. Well, guess where I want that person? I want them in my community engagement unit, for example. If someone is really into mental health, we have a very robust mental health unit that is amazing, does amazing work. I just don't put anybody in there. I want to know someone that really wants to help people that are mentally ill, that have drug addictions, and those people that we come in contact quite a bit. So it's not one of those things. Hey, who's next? You're in. It doesn't work like that. But I know people that love it and they are very good at it. Well, I'm going to use them as a mental health officer. I'll give you another one. we have a very strong sense of entitlement in policing. And we just started a motorcycle unit here in my department. We have 4 BMW bikes, beautiful bikes, right? Nice, and they look cool as heck and all that, right? And so I put it out, who wants to be a motorcycle officer? Well, there was obviously some interest. There's one young man, his name is Mateo. He's a 1-year officer, 1-year officer. And he came and he interviewed, knowing that, hey, it's probably not going to happen, right? Because he's a 1-year officer. Usually we kind of, give those assignments to more experienced officers. But guess what? He came in, he goes, I already knew this was coming. I had heard. So I bought a motorcycle. I went to the class myself. I have actually been riding around this city just to get used to the streets, because I know some are whatever. And I want to make sure, because I want to be a motorcycle officer. Well, guess what? He's a 1-year officer out there, and we just started a few months ago. He's out there, and of course the other ones are like, man, he's a 1-year officer. I said, that's right, but look at what he brought, man. A passion that he just wants to do this. So why am I going to put somebody? Yeah, I'll do it if you need somebody. No. That's not what we want. Somebody who has the passion and wants to do it. Of course, we're going to put him in there. For me, tenure means very little. Yeah, tenure means very little. You can be, I know you've heard this, you can be on the force 20 years over, but have 1-year experience.
Yeah.
Or 1-year experience 20 times over, right?
Yeah.
That happens a lot. So just because you've been here 20 years doesn't mean that, you're going to add value to this organization. And I think that's another thing we need to get past. But so those are the things that I enjoy doing. I love that story, because a young man is fulfilling his dream to be that, and he's doing it, and I see him every day, and he's just has a smile on his face and loves coming to work. So that's where I get the reward out of being a chief.
That's amazing. I mean, you told that story, and I have chills. I still have chills, because what level of commitment Mateo had to go out and say, you know what? I don't just want this job, like you said. So many senior officers think, oh, it's a cush job. I get to drive a bike and take some pictures, post on social media. This would be cool. Mateo's like, no, I'm going to go buy a motorcycle. I'm going to learn how to ride it, drive the streets. I mean, that's incredible.
No, you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
See, everybody wants things just handed to them.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, hey, they'll send me to school. The department needs to send me to training. They need to listen, why don't you go invest in yourself and be ready when the opportunity comes up? That's when things happen. But if you're waiting on somebody else to make your life better, good luck with that. So you go out there and do what you have to do to be prepared for those opportunities, just like Mateo. And he did, and he's doing a great job. But there's so many stories like that. But we need people who are just passionate. And I love being around people that are very passionate about their job.
Yeah, it's infectious. It rubs off on you. It makes you want to step up your game.
And you know what it also does? Not only to us, but it also kind of, the guys that I say guys, generally, officers, they see that, and it either rubs off, or they're like, man, I'm not fitting in this anymore. They'll eventually maybe even leave the organization, which is not always a bad thing.
Wow. That's awesome. Chief, is there anything at your experience at Dallas PD that it was, I mean, obviously you spent 17 years there, but what, did you always know you want to be an executive, be a chief, or was there something that happened there that you say, you know what, this is what I want to do?
Well, I mean, I've always had, ambition, right? I wanted some drive, and I knew this back to go into my gift of encouragement. I knew the more, if I went up more, I could be in a position to do that more. So I spent actually 21 years in Dallas, but I learned so much in a large city. I also learned this being in smaller cities now. And the city I'm in is about 100,000, so it's a medium-sized city. But police is the same in Dallas as it is in the 20,000, city, or 100,000. Policing is virtually the same. People want the same from us. So that's really what I learned, because I've been in an urban, I've been in East Texas, I've been in South. So people want and expect the same things from us. They expect us to treat them with fairness, dignity, and respect. It's really that simple. But in Dallas, had the opportunity. Let me tell you what the number one assignment when I had in Dallas was being the public information officer, the spokesperson for Dallas. And that's a double-edged sword, but I'll tell you what I got from there. I had an opportunity, but first of all, the chief he picked me out of, again, I learned that from him, Chief Kunkel. He saw something in me. Now and he made me as a public information officer, not even knowing me, but he saw something, because I would like him to be our. So anyway, so he gave me this opportunity. I learned so much, right? Not only to deal with the media, which is another animal, which is very, very important. That's probably for another podcast. But I really learned to understand policing at a national or global level. Because I had to, right, in order to respond not only to the crime stuff, that's the easy stuff, right? The stuff that I had to respond to was, officer misconduct, those kinds of things that are hard to talk about. But it really helped me get a sense of how to do that. But it also gave me a good sense of, there's Chief Coco now. No, I'm just kidding. But really just gave me a good sense of policing, not only crime-wise, I'm talking about personnel and how to deal with that. So it was a great assignment, and it's helped me a lot, even where I'm at today.
Wow.
Yeah.
How important is mentorship? Not just, low level, but even you as a chief of police. I mean, you have, I'm not sure the structure there, but you have captains, lieutenants under you. Like, how important is that up and down that everyone, it's not just a low level thing of mentorship, it's all throughout the ranks. How important is it?
It is, and that's what we should be doing. Coaching. I think I like coaching a little bit more, the term coaching, more than anything. Here's what I learned about mentorship is that it's good to have mentors within the organization, but I think it's even better to have one outside of the organization. Don't limit yourself to people just in this organization and whatever organization you're in. Think outside. Look for eagles. And you've heard me probably my social media and all that. Talk about eagles. Look for eagles outside. It doesn't matter what they're doing it in. It doesn't matter it doesn't have to be policing. Look for eagles and hang out with them. Start spending time with them. Start buying them lunch and just be there. Because what happens is you'll catch some of it. Because I learned leadership is taught and it's caught. Well, we're teaching it. We're trying to learn it, read it and all that, but we got to go catch it. And how do you catch it? That's by being around other people that you want to be like. So go out there and seek those. It could be a pastor. It could be whoever out there. Go out there and hang out with them and spend the money. If you need to even pay for the time to spend with them, it's worth the money. Think about that. How much would you to spend an hour with whoever you think is whoever, Bill Gates or whoever is successful in your mind, or a great leader, whoever that is, right, in your mind? How much would you spend to spend 1 hour, just you and that person? And think of the value you would get 1 hour just being with them. Elon Musk. Okay. So go hang out with Elon Musk for 1 hour. You can ask him anything you want. How much would you pay for that? See?
It's invaluable. Invaluable.
Yeah, most people wouldn't pay. They'd be like, no, I'm not going to pay. Man, but they're missing out, man.
You're right about that. Ooh, wow. And I like how you say it's like soaring with eagles. I'm going to use that too. That's great. I know I know you're an educated man, a polished man. Ryan's also a voracious reader. So I know he always likes to ask people about books. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
Yeah, Chief, do you have any good, what would be your number one book recommendation that you would give to someone, whether it's leadership or even outside of that you just think is a great, fantastic read?
Well, I am a big John Maxwell guy, right? I read other things, but I do love John Maxwell because he says it in a very simple way. So 21 irrefutable laws, right? Of leadership, laws of leadership. But I'll tell you, I like to challenge myself thinking critically. Okay. So I really love stuff from Malcolm Gladwell, for example. He has a book that just came out about a year ago, and it's good for policing, but it's good for anybody. It's called Talking to Strangers. Okay. Talking to Strangers. And what he does is really paints a picture. He talks about Sandra Bland. Do you remember that happened here in Texas a year or two ago, a couple of years ago, with the DPS trooper? Remember all that? And she committed suicide. So he kind of revolves the message around that. And here's what he talks about. And it really just challenges you, or at least me, it does, to think differently, right? And so the message is this: we don't know people like we think we know people. So we're expecting something, people to react a certain way, or else something's not right. Well, that's not true, right? So we have to, watch ourselves. And police think that we know people very well, and it turns out we don't. He talks about spies, and he talks about different, things that have happened. We've all heard about. You'll have to read the book. So great stories. And they thought that they understood people, and because they acted a certain way differently than what we thought they should, behave or act, well, then something's wrong or they're lying or whatever. And so I love those books that challenges us to think. He has other good books, Blink and other ones, Outliers, I think is the other one. Yeah. And so I like those kinds of books because it challenges me in the way I think.
I'm definitely going to add that one to my reading list.
And I recommend doing the audiobook as well, because you know what? It's his voice and the people that he talks about, he says it in their voice too. It's their actual voice. So it's actually really, really cool to listen to.
And Chief, one other big thing that was on my mind, while we were talking here, is I know that we touched on how a lot of things in policing is tenure based, and things will be handed out based on tenure and seniority. And ultimately, that was a big one in my department. Things were given out based on tenure more so than actual merit. And so what advice would you give to a patrolman or even a lower level management that may be stuck inside an agency that does not have a leader that believes like you do and a leader like yourself, that they have that all the way from the top down? It's that toxic leadership, and ultimately I see that as a big problem. That's what they get taught from the beginning up, and that's how they're bred into leadership positions. So what advice would you give to someone lower in rank in a department like that to either to move on or to be able to contribute to changing the culture of that department?
Well, it's hard to do it at that level. It's hard to change a culture at a lower level. It just is. That's not to say you can't have influence, in a circle, or you can still be influential. But as far as the culture of an organization, it's hard to change it. So my advice would be, and we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, is the organization the problem or am I the problem? And if you're truly looking to invest in yourself, you truly want to do better, you truly want to hang out with eagles, and you look around and there are no eagles, then it's probably a good time for you to look for an organization that you can fit in, you can grow in, and you'll be much happier. Because if you're happy just doing what you're doing, which is fine, it's okay. But if you want to do some things and grow and all those things, and you need to be in an organization that's also growing. One of the leadership principles that John Maxwell talks about is that leadership led. And if you don't belong to a organization that the leader has a high leadership led, then the organization is going to get stuck, right? So here's the leader. If his skill level as a leader is right here, the organization cannot outgrow the leadership led of the leader. So guess what happens? Unless that leader is constantly growing, it provides other people the opportunity to grow too. But if it's not growing, here's what happens. And then what happens? People get frustrated. And what happens? They leave and they become resentful, and all those things. They start sabotaging the organization. It causes lots of frustration and all those things that you and I have experienced, right? So it's really important to look for an organization that a leader has a high leadership lid that understands it, so that people can grow underneath that leader.
I absolutely love that answer, and I could not agree more. And that's something that I learned when I was with my agency, is that, when I got to that point and I learned, wait a second, look in the mirror, I realized, well, right now you are part of the problem because you're just going along with the flow.
Right.
And when I realized that, then I was able to start making those changes and then learn that, okay, this is not the fit for me because of those same reasons.
And can I tell you something? It's not always the leader has to look at himself or herself as well. The leadership, you can go to an organization and think, you know what, I am not the best fit for this organization. Mm-hmm. And that's okay too. So sometimes we're not the best fit for organizations, but we have to look at ourselves and be real with ourselves. And if that's the case, you don't want to be holding people up. You don't want to be leading an organization that it's just not going to work, right? It's just the culture is way too set in one way. It's just too much. So you don't want to do that. So if you become the problem as a leader, it's time for the leader to go. Yeah. But we should initiate that, right? And it's okay.
Yeah. Chief, yeah. Wow. What impactful stuff today. I learned a heck of a lot. Got a lot of notes here I wrote down. Your book, tell us about your book, Excellence in Policing. What made you write it, and where can people buy it?
Well, because I love this profession and I want to contribute to it as much as I can. It's just a very small book. Matter of fact, where is it? I don't have one with me. Anyway, I should have it, right? but it's called Excellence in Policing. Several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I read something that really caught my eye, and it was an aha moment when I was doing some research for grad school. And what I wanted to know is how the community perceives us in law enforcement. How do they look at us, right? And number two is, as a leader, are we doing things that are actually impacting community and impacting people, or are we just spinning our wheels in order just tell people that we're doing something, but it's not impactful? So I wanted to know more about that. And I read about some research, and now it's a big term in procedural justice and legitimacy and those kinds of things. We hear that quite a bit now, but back then it was just kind of barely starting out. Well, what I read was that people are, this is research, okay? It's not just stuff we just kind of, made up. Most people are more interested when they encounter a police officer. They're more interested in how the officer arrived to the outcome, whether it be an arrest or citation or warning or whatever that is, than the outcome itself. Right? Here's what I found. Most of us officers were thinking people are more interested in the outcome, whether they got off on a citation or warning or whatever. And that just wasn't the case, right? So I thought, man, I think there's opportunity here to perhaps challenge our officers to think a little bit differently about managing police-citizen encounters. And if we can gain just a little healthier understanding of what that looks like from their perspective, perhaps we can manage those police encounters. And number one, be safer. Be safer. So, and then everything else falls into place, but being safe is the number one. But if we're safer, if people comply with us more, if people are more satisfied with our service, right? Even when we're having to enforce violations or arrest, I ask officers all the time, have you ever arrested someone and you book them in a jail and they say, officer, I just want to thank you. They actually have thanked you for not for placing them in jail, but I ask them, why are they thanking you? Ryan, you're not in your head. Well, why is that?
Because of the way you treated them.
There you go. So it's not rocket science. You treated more than likely this individual with a level of fairness, dignity, and respect, perhaps one of their lowest level, wherever they're at in their life, right? And so we just took the time to treat them as a human being, as a man, as a woman, to be an adult.
Wow.
And so that goes a long way. So it goes back to our the importance of every police-citizen encounter. If we can manage those better, we're safer. We build trust. We build more cooperation. And listen, it's a crime fighting strategy, right? With more cooperation, they're going to give us more information in order to act in their best interest and seek justice on their behalf and all those things. But it goes back to one simple principle, is how we treat people. And we just have to be the adult in the room and take the lead on that. Is it going to be perfect every time? No, but more so than not, man. People are going to appreciate you and appreciate your department. And so that's what the book's about in a nutshell.
Wow, that's great. And this whole interview was powerful. You said some incredible things, and I can't wait to share this with my friends and my former colleagues up here. Awesome stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chief. We're going to put I guess you get on Amazon. We're going to put a link to your book in our description.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, guys. It's okay. Excellence in Policing, and it's on audiobook as well. I got a secret, right? It's on audiobook. I'm actually narrating. It's only about 2 hours. Okay. It's a small book. But I hear it's better than Ambien. You'll be out in less than 5 minutes if you put it on audiobook and it'll knock you out. So if you're having trouble sleeping, buy my book and listen to it on audiobook, but it's on ebook as well. And here's the other thing. I'll send you my email address, but it's, Excellence in Policing. I'll send it to you. But if I can do anything for you guys or for anybody else out there who wants to learn more about it, I'm here to make money on the book. Let me know so I can help you. If I can send you some things, some whatever. I'd love to help and hear from you. And like I said, I'm here to help. And so I hope it does.
You're one of the good ones, Chief.
Appreciate that, Chief.
You're one of the good ones. We appreciate it.
I appreciate that. But I'm telling you guys, I've learned a lot, but most of them is because of the mistakes that I've made. And that there's things that I don't like that I did, but I've learned from them. And so I don't want people to believe, oh, no. I'm learning and I make mistakes and but I think as long as we're all learning, we're all better for it. And it's when we stop learning when there's a problem. So anyway, I'm in this with you. So we're right there together. So don't think that we're all in this together. So
I definitely think that mindset that you spoke about right there is what makes you and people with that mindset incredible leaders.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Chief Andy Harvey, thank you so much. You're our first guest, and I can't think of anybody better to do this for us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Best of luck to you.
Yes, it was a pleasure to get to meet you.
Thank you, Ryan and Chad. I'm so honored, and good luck with this podcast. I love the questions that you ask because they're genuine, and I know people will get a lot out of it. So remember the name, the podcast without a name. That's the name.
I like that. Thanks so much, Chief. Take care. All the best to you.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it.